Real questions, real answers for real life. Come on in and pull up a chair. You're at 1850 Main Street with Michael DelGiorno and David Zanotti.
Has anyone else noticed how it seems like headlines have nothing to do with their articles these days?
Remember a long time ago when I used to say, behind every headline is a story, behind every story there's so much to talk about, because we got to be like headline consumers. And then it got to be where it was like the mainstream media knew you wouldn't read past the headlines. You didn't have the attention span to go past the headline. And then it became fun because most of the time the story disproves the headline, let alone, make sense for the headline. Well, this morning's headline from ABC was Americans agree that 2024 election will be pivotal for democracy, whatever that is, they never define it, but for different reasons. And I loved it because, number one, there's nothing in America we can all agree on, especially this. But if you go inside the story, it doesn't take you long to see it wasn't even the highest tested thing. The debt tested the same, and the border tested about the same, and inflation in the economy tested higher. How do they get away with headlines like this, David, that don't even have anything to do with the story? I mean, I get that it's narrative and not journalism, but gee, at least you think you'd make it tricky.
Well, and I'm going to do this now every time we're talking about Associated Press, because this for me is a new necessity in America. At the bottom of now an AP story like this, let me read you the disclaimer that the Associated Press puts at the bottom of their articles. The Associated Press receives support from several private foundations to enhance its explanatory coverage of elections and democracy. See more about AP's democracy initiative here. The AP is solely responsible for all content. Right.
Oh, wait. Can I read the bottom of the ABC story and see if they include that disclaimer?
They do.
So
they do, in fact.
Oh, they did?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep. All right. So last year.
If you read 37 paragraphs down, you would see that.
Last year, AP cut a deal with 5 left-wing foundations that now fund their nonprofit efforts. And you tell me that these people that are funding, the reporters and the costs at AP, are not calling the tune. Why does it suddenly? You got to be kidding me. The language is completely coming straight out of these foundations. All right. Next thing is the polls got 1,074 adults, November 30th through December 4th. Using a sample drawn from a probability-based AmeriSpeak panel, which is designed to be representative. Michael, we've got people doing polling these days off of online panel research. Could you imagine being one of these panelists? Oh, I'm on a panel for the Associated Press and for AmeriSpeak. My opinion, once you're on the panel, how are you any longer even remotely objective, like 3 months later? Honestly. But yes, they did a poll.
Don't expect the polls to move any way other than the way you want them to move. Can I start with the story? In a politically polarized nation, like they've had nothing to do with the polarization. In a politically polarized nation,
in a world,
the Americans seem to agree on one issue. Somehow, of these 1,000 panelists, we've found the holy grail of what all of America can agree on. Caution, you're not going to feel that way once you get to the facts, but it's a nice opening paragraph. A worry over the state of democracy and how the outcome of the presidential contest will affect its true future.
Hit the cash register right there. Cha-ching. Thank you to all the foundations that are funding us. You got another lead in our stories. Thank you very much.
As if the presidency and the outcome of the next presidential election has that power. They just disagree over who poses the threat. And then when you go inside the numbers, a poll from the Associated Press and NORC Center for Public Affairs Research found that 62% of Americans say democracy in the United States could be at risk. Could be is an open-ended, to what level it's at risk. All right, that's number one. And if you break it down, 72% of Democrats believe that, and only 55% of Republicans believe that. Apparently, democracy is more clearly understood by Democrats. But by the way, when you scroll down now, 7 paragraphs later, you find out the poll asked about the importance of the upcoming presidential election for 12 issues and found that the percentage of who said the outcome will be very extremely important to the future of democracy in the U.S., 67% was its ranking. Guess what was 75? the economy, stupid. So, and by the way, border and government spending virtually tied the future of democracy. Why wasn't the headline? Americans all agree the economy is going to be pivotal in this election. I mean, this is so beyond bias, so beyond narrative. I guess just scroll all the way to the bottom and see disclaimer. It's the only thing that would make sense of this nonsense.
Yeah, I guess it's like their book report to the foundations that are funding them right now to say this and to make everyone so worried about democracy. But it's first off, you rightly coined this as the orange mush god. I added the word jello. It's the orange jello mush god. You ask these people, oh, okay, excuse me, please define democracy. How do you define it? I'll bet you that none of the panelists can define it. I'll bet you none of the people asking the questions, even writing the questions, could define it. What is democracy? Democracy is whatever the progressives want it to be. That's democracy. What democracy really is when progressives are in power, then we're all doing fine.
Well, all right. So we've done this before. Can I just,
Sure.
Just to restate it. All right. So we're a republic. We are supposed to be a moral, self-governed people in charge. Government is in place to protect our inalienable rights, all right? It's so viewed the other way around. Now you have these elitists trying to create a centralized administrative state and you being the controlled entity. But that's what we were intended to be, a moral, self-governed people in a constitutional representative republic and a government of laws. All right, then they start and it started with Barack Obama. They just started referring to us as a democracy. Now Joe Biden talks about the soul of our nation is our democracy. And at first people were like, does the president not know we're a republic and not a democracy? Well, of course Barack Obama knew. He's a constitutional attorney. He was head of the Harvard Bar. I mean, he gets it. Of course he gets it. Law review. But they were conditioning. And then suddenly we went from being a republic to a democracy becoming the Democrat Party and its platform and policies. And now, because you didn't stop them earlier, if you oppose any of their views, see our conversation on The Atlantic, basically all 26. Oh my gosh, the great abomination of Donald Trump, the dictator and boogeyman. If he wins, this will happen. And it was all the issues and what they stand for. So we went from being a republic to a democracy, and from a democracy to being whatever the Democrat Party policy and platform stands for and their candidates. And anybody who opposes their candidates or any of their stances or policies, you're a threat to democracy. You're an insurrectionist. That's really I'm not kidding you. That's where we're at.
When you subscribe to 1850 Main Street, you're the first to find out what's happening next with new guests, publications, and events. And when you spread the word about 1850 Main Street, you're helping others find real answers to the real questions facing America right now. To learn more, visit 1850mainstreet.com. And please, tell a friend.
So here's my question. Let's extend.
Why are you so calm?
Let's extend the logic of this. Let's extend it. So since the entire health and identity of the American system of constitutional government hinges upon who is in the White House, what happens if the president, if any president dies and we're stuck without a president? Does the system completely collapse? Well, no, the vice president becomes the president. Okay, what if the president and the vice president both die? Does the system come to an end? No, the Speaker of the House becomes president of the United States.
That's what your founders thought of the presidency.
Yeah, that's what the founders thought of the presidency.
Can I do you one better?
Yeah.
Can you tell me, I know you can tell me, after John F. Kennedy was killed, somebody on Air Force One was sworn in as president while still on the ground in Dallas. That was?
Say it again, because I want to be sure it wasn't a trick question. What did you say?
Oh, no, it's not a trick question. Who got sworn in on Air Force One on the tarmac at Love Field in Dallas?
Well, he was actually sworn in the hospital first. Johnson was sworn in twice.
Well, but the official one by the judge was in the Air Force One.
The official one was in the hospital. The ceremonial one was on the airplane where they could take pictures.
Or what have you. All right.
Yeah.
Who was sworn in as vice president?
Ask Jack next time you talk to him, because I'm telling you, that's what really happened.
Jack, I'm trying to make a simple point, and he's splitting hairs and making it uncomfortable. I know, he's a silly. All right. Who was sworn in as vice president?
Nobody.
We didn't have a vice president
Of course not.
until the next election.
Right. Now, Congress could have chosen to appoint a vice president, but they didn't.
But they didn't. Yeah, but nobody even remembers that.
Yeah.
Nobody even thinks about that.
That, by the way, is a brilliant point. Took you long enough to get there, but that was a brilliant point.
Well, work with me for a change. Now I know what Costello felt like.
That's an excellent
By the way,
point.
can I just interrupt and say, why don't we ever talk about Abbott and Costello? I think they may have been the most brilliant out of all of them.
Without a doubt.
If I could have hung out, I would have loved to hang out with the Howard brothers, the Three Stooges. I would have loved to hang out with Abbott and Costello.
You would have loved the Marx. You would have hung out with the Marx brothers more than any of them. But Abbott and Costello.
Gosh, are you kidding?
I mean, how many times could you watch Who's on First and never grow tired of watching it?
Oh, it was just, they were brilliant. Okay, but no, I made a brilliant point. What was it?
Abbott and Costello were brilliant. No, there was no vice president. We didn't have to have a vice president because the Speaker of the House was fine. I'll tell you where a lot of this went bad was when the presidents of the United States started to use executive orders to literally come into office and say, by the power invested in me, I say we're going to do this. Now, Congress, stop me. By the power invested in me, stop me. Every president does it. Joe Biden did it just like Donald Trump did it. Donald Trump did it just like Barack Obama did it. It's been going on for years.
As
and
George
years and
W.
years.
Bush did
As
it.
George W. Bush. This is an abuse of power, and Congress ought to rise up and basically say, oh, excuse me, presidential executive order, let's see, that's temporary law. It violates the following things. Or, you know what, we don't like your executive order, so we're just passing a law saying that executive order is null and void. Not going to happen. But you see, Congress is the feckless bunch of whiners that sit around because they're more interested in keeping power in their systems as well. It's all a game to keep the power. And that's why we cannot take the bait.
This particular Congress, as this year comes to a close, will literally go down as record as the most unproductive Congress in United States history. They've got literally nothing done. Nothing.
I feel so much better for America.
But, we talk about how, it should be about the people, and that it should be about the people's house. The last thing it should be about is the one that executes the laws. It should be the will of the people through the House, confirmed by the Senate, and then signed into law and executed by the executive branch. But yeah, there's no government productivity. They're all great campaigners. They're all great panderers and promisers. But when it comes to governing, they're all enormous failures. And the sooner America gets that,
because
the better.
Can't govern a constitutional republic with the laws that are still on the books when one branch says, we'll handle it from here. Doesn't matter whether it's the Supreme Court or whether it's exclusively the Congress or whether it's the White House. You have to have a degree of cooperation among the branches of government. Now, Congress can get away by law. They have the ability and the authority to do most of the work, and they should. Problem with Congress is they don't like the heavy lifting. They would much rather just go back and play the power game because look, Congress changes every 2 years. They can outlast the American people. Their attitude is, look, you all are going to die. We're going to be here forever.
Well, the two parties have the stranglehold. So picture a chessboard. You have the two parties on each end controlling all the pieces. They take members of Congress and treat them like pawns. They should be the kings. We treat presidents like kings, and they should be the pawns.
Yeah.
I mean, we're only getting it completely backwards, David.
And we're upside down and inside out. And that's one of the reasons why we keep praying for our country, that we can come back to our senses, put Article 1 as the major priority, blow past all the nonsense. And it's going to be a tough year, Michael, because the temptation is going to be to talk every single waking moment about the presidency. I'm telling you, if every president could come back from their place of eternal destiny, whatever that may be, and honestly tell us the biggest mistake we're making, I'm telling you right now, I'm certain they would say, putting way too much power in the presidency.
Except for Dick. Dick would tell you don't have me to kick around anymore. By the way, how's the kids? I can't even do it with a straight face anymore.
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.